Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to let me repeat, the Rock and Roll Podcast. Check out this record. My name is Frank, and with me is my good buddy, Mark.
Hello, Frank, and hello, listener.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and now Amazon Music Podcast.
Ooh, that's right.
Oh,
New episodes are dripping and dropping and slowly slipping and sliding their way into your ears every Friday morning.
love it, love it. And for any new listeners out there, this is the podcast where Mark and I, we recommend albums to each other, we review them. Plus, we have a wide variety of musical discussions, like our Spotlight series, Mark, where we're going to dig into a band's catalog and we will see what comes out on the other side.
Yeah, or in our verse series where we pit two albums against each other and make them duke it out. Total stereo domination.
Love it. Please be sure to check out our Instagram page and now our Facebook group. We like to drop additional content that will hopefully leave you wanting more of our musical goodness and Mark's random nonsense. And if you got a record that you want us to check out, just drop a comment wherever you find this. While you're at it, subscribe, give us a rating, a review, a like. So I say this, Mark, how are you, my man?
Frankie, I'm good, brother. Really pumped. We're finally making it to talking about the Cold Years record tonight, which we've been talking about for like 3 weeks now after we interviewed Ross from the Cold Years. So it's finally time, folks at home. You've been playing along perfectly. You've listened to the record. You know what we're going to talk about. We're really excited. How are you, Frank?
I'm good, my man. I'm good. And you're right. So after we had a chat with Ross from the Cold Years, I wanted to take a look at something he said, and he mentioned that he sees the band as a punk band, something many people have been calling heartland punk. But he mentioned that he didn't think the record came across that way, and it was more like rock and roll. So Mark, let's before we get into the album, let's take a minute, and we're not going to do a traditional top list here, but it's going to kind of be a list of things that we go through. Let's
Sure.
take a minute and look at some bands that are doing something along those lines. So let's talk about the bands that blur the lines between punk or hardcore and cross it over into more traditional rock and roll feel. Let's do that, right?
Yeah, Frank, I have to tell you, we are at an interesting crossroads for the genre that is punk rock. Between the number of bands, even just small local acts, like us used to love playing in the garage, singing along to our own songs, and building this bond that folks are enjoying right now on the internet. The genre has gone through so many shapes and forms that a new album like the Cold Years Paradise, we're going to talk about in a little bit, move the needle, beyond just being a bar graph of what punk rock is. And we've now got like this, like this delicious pie chart of punk rock and the
Love
different
pie.
ways it expands outward. And really that's what this genre was built on, right? It was the genre of bands that didn't fit anywhere else. That's the only way you get the Ramones and Blondies and Talking Head and the Clash and X and Suicide all lumped together in a single genre. It wasn't until the second wave where things began to kind of homogenize with the birth of hardcore.
Right.
With rock and roll being, kind of the basis of all these bands, it's only natural that we see some bands that are identify as punk that come across as a little bit more of that kind of traditional black leather jacket rock and roll. It feels very natural that we end up with a band that would with bands, excuse me, that would blur the line
Totally.
between punk and rock and roll. So I'm really interested to see where this will lead.
Yeah, me too. And I think what's cool, like, let's look right now. If you think it'll be a good idea, I think it definitely will. Well, let's list some bands, right? And of course, we'll forget. Listen, we're not going to cover all of them, but these are bands I think may contain some of those elements that we were just mentioning. And let's see if that way of thinking is right. Am I onto something here, or maybe it's just maybe it's just me kind of talking on my ass a little bit, or maybe we could talk about the bands and see if we like them or not. But does that sound good to you, Mark?
Yeah, that sounds great. I love this idea of exploring. Would you call it heartland punk rock?
Yeah, something like that, right? Where it's that
Yeah,
blur line between punk, rock and roll, the heartland feel, and
sure.
let's see what we get. So first up here, let's go with Social Distortion, Mark. I mean,
What?
what? Is this where it began? I mean, this is for me where it's like punk influenced music met rock and roll. I think this band transcends multiple rock subgenres. You have your punk fans, your rock and roll fans, your outlaw country fans, general music fans, you name it. Early on, yes, they were more punk, and then as Mike Ness structured the sound. And as he mentioned, actually, it's the Ramones getting in a car crash with Hank Williams, right? And when I think of them, I do think of rock and roll with distorted style punk guitars. And for me, I love all their records, with the exception of the last one, but that's okay. But I'm on a kick right now between with Somewhere Between Heaven and Hell, Cold Feelings, Bad Luck, Bye Bye Baby, such stellar tunes. But Mark, talk to us a little bit about Social D and kind of that whole meshing of punk and rock.
Yeah, I love that description of social distortion. The Ramones getting into a car crash with Hank Williams. It's very clever, sir. And I thought it was you who said it until you told me it was Mike Ness.
I'm sorry.
It's an honest and I think fair statement. I'm with you on their albums. My personal favorite is right now, anyways, Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll. I just happened to pick this up on vinyl.
So good.
It's the band really channels this late 50s, early 60s rock and roll feel with the punk edge they've always brought with their work. I particularly love Reach for the Sky, Footprints on My Ceiling, I Wasn't Born to Follow, which I believe is he wrote for Joey Ramone after he passed.
Yeah.
Live Before You Die. I mean, it's just a great record, and it really encompasses that rock and roll feel, but still has that edge of rebellion, that sense of DIY punk rock aesthetic that they've so known for over all the years.
Yeah, totally. So cool, man. So cool. And Social D definitely, I think, one of the early on pioneers of that for sure. Next, we're going to talk about Dave Haas and the Loved Ones. And I would say, funny story, about 2005, I was super into the Loved Ones, and Dave Haas turned me on to other bands outside of the realm of traditional punk. I would actually have conversations with him, Mark, believe it or not, on MySpace. That's right, people. MySpace, right?
About personal friends with Dave Haas on MySpace?
I was. He would reply to me because I would talk to him. Now, Loved Ones have been inactive for a while, but Haas is doing his own thing. I dug the first two solo records, but eventually got a little lost, I would say, with the more recent stuff. But the Loved Ones, they also showcased a more of a punk sound, but they had rock peeking its head out, I think. And his solo work really is not too dissimilar from the last two, I would say, Social D releases. The Loved Ones Keep Your Heart record is really cool. I like the song Jane, Breathe In, Please Be Here, Sickening, stuff like that. So more kind of your take on Dave Haas and the Loved Ones, and again, that punk meets rock and roll sound.
Yeah, the Loved Ones were definitely an early frontrunner in this movement. Different from Social Distortion, as they were more channeling of that kind of 70s, almost Springsteen-like lyrical nature, as opposed to the sound of the late 50s that Social Distortion really nailed. I didn't have any communication with Dave Haas on MySpace.
Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
But I dug what they were putting out, and I was surprised to find out he played guitar in Painted Black.
Yeah.
On Painted Black's first record, which I love that record so much. It couldn't be any more different than any of the Loved Ones records. Other than the guitars, drums, and bass, like they were just such a different band. So it was so surprising to me when you introduced me to this band and I found out they were connected. Anyways, Keep Your Heart is a great record. I also really, really enjoyed Build and Burn. I remember getting that record and just being so impressed with it. Opening with a number like Pretty Good Year with just Dave's strange voice and a guitar is just a bold choice, but it sets the tone for the album perfectly. Where there is a great deal of hope on that record, it still coming from a very dark and personal place.
Right.
Lines like, will this overture seem dull to all my friends? And one of my favorite lines is, because there's a faith that could tear this whole world apart. So pour the drinks and we'll cause the dancing to start.
Love it.
I really dig it. I like the way he wanted to be, kind of this sad, dark rock and roll dance band. It really had that great aesthetic to it. Then there are the songs like The Bridge, Third Shift, Louisiana, that's just screams Springsteen in their earnest and honest form. Great band. It's a great record. I wish his solo stuff was as good. I just don't feel that his work outside of I think he's one of those guys that needs a band to balance him and help with that song structure writing deal. But who knows why they're not doing stuff as the Loved Ones and why he's doing his solo stuff. It's kind of weird. This is another case where that guy got sober, and I don't like anything he does anymore.
That's so
I mean, good for him. Sobriety is great if you need sobriety, but
yeah, no, I hear you. I like the stuff with the loved ones better. I wish there was more stuff of the loved ones. Third Shift too on Build a Burn is a great song, and you're right, they did bring in that little Springsteen feel to it, maybe before another band on here that we'll eventually talk about. So let's go to the next band. We haven't talked about them much, and it's Chamberlain. Chamberlain's a band. And speaking of MySpace earlier, Brian Fallon actually turned me on. We didn't talk, but he turned me on to this band. He did a song with them in 2010 called "The South Has Spoiled Me." I sometimes, and this may need to be a bigger conversation. Think they could be a precursor to Gaslight. Singer David Moore has a similar vibe to Fallon's singing. That is for sure. There's more traditional rock feel with this band, and they were once they went by the name Split Lip, which had more punk traits. Their album, The Moon My Saddle, is a great listen. Tracks like Manhattan's Iron Horses, Mountain of a Heart, Lonesome Song. They're some of my favorites. Mark, I know we spoke briefly about them, but your thoughts on Chamberlain?
Yeah, full disclosure, I am not familiar with this band. The name sounds really familiar, but unless this is the Chamberlain from the Menzingers, Chamberlain Waits, then I have absolutely nothing to contribute to this. So, hey, maybe that's something we do an episode on. Leave us a comment. Tell us which albums you want us to listen to. Frank's probably familiar with most of them. I'm familiar with none of them. We'll listen to you, dear listener.
There you go. Okay, cool. So let's put that one in our back pocket for for future episode. You mentioned the Menzingers. Okay, here's another band, the Menzingers. I mean, not much I could say about this band. We both fell in love with them the minute at least we came across them. I think that's how it went for us. Chamberlain Waits was such a great display of their full punk sound, and from there, it's just been record after record of great rock and roll tunes, but they still keep that punk vibe. I mean, On the Impossible Past, Rented World, After the Party, Hello Exile. If you're asking me to pick, I can't. I love how Greg just has progressed as a singer and a songwriter and has matured, and you feel like you've really grown with this band. So Mark, the Menzingers are on my list for this another band who's taken punk and rock and made it their own.
Yeah, that first record, A Lesson in the Abuse of Information Technology,
Yeah.
Really took me by surprise. The cover of The Clash's Straight to Hell felt like it belonged on that album.
Yes.
It was almost birthday, and I remember you bringing that to me in a parking lot at a practice studio and going, dude, you gotta check this out.
Yeah.
But it was really the catalyst for me to listen to that record much deeper because there was so much going on there. It was a gritty record, and you can hear they've got something to prove, perhaps to themselves more than anyone else, which is a trait that carries across the record, even as the music shifted away from being intentionally pretty punk and almost ska and crossing into more of that rock and roll feel.
Right.
But again, that energy of insecurity so many of us identify as punk rock comes with each Menzingers record, which is why they're so fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't pick a favorite record of theirs. If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably just tell you to listen to Hold On Dodge.
Oh, that's great too, man.
The EP, it's 4 tracks if you've got the 7-inch, or it's 5 tracks if you're streaming it. It's an amazing record. It really does a great job of showing you how amazing this band is in a short period of time. It just an absolute phenomenal record. Check out Hold On Dodge.
I love everything they do, as I know you do.
Yeah.
Good band. So in my conversations with Dave Haas, here we go again. He mentioned, I know I keep name dropping. I always name drop. I'm so bad at this. I'm the worst person to know because I'll name drop to no end. I mean, how long am I beating that Chad Price Pummel story for? I think everybody I come in contact with, I say it to. Oh man. All right. So anyway, Dave Haas turned me on to the Hold Steady. He's the one who told me about them. When I first heard them, it was almost to the point where I felt like I heard music for the first time. I mean, Craig Finn's slurred voice with Dylan, it was that Dylan and early Springsteen type lyrics wrapped around rock and roll. They also have this cool, I think they have a cool punk energy about them. And what I like about them is that they pay homage to all the greats, to so many that we love, and they keep it real and unique. Mark, Boys and Girls in America and Stay Positive. I mean, that does it for me any day of the week. And pretty much all those tracks on there, I'll take. But Hold Steady, Mark. What about them?
Yeah, just so that I can keep up with Frank, he did turn me on to the Hold Steady. So, if de facto Dave House personally told me about the whole steady too.
There you go.
This is a fascinating phenomenon to me. I don't hear any other Minnesota bands when I listen to them. I don't get the Replacements at all. I don't get Prince. I don't get that kind of classic cliche of
Husker Du, none of that.
Right.
Yeah,
of what you expected. They really were just themselves. I hear the rock and roll. Craig Finn and crew have an amazing, rich sound, and what he's able to do lyrically is just outstanding. Hiding references in plain sight, so you've got to Google fucking every lyric to figure out what the subtext of it. Because sometimes it's a Dillinger 4 reference, and sometimes it's a Suicide reference, or there's just so much that the little things that are drizzled on top are just that. They're just the tip of the iceberg. Truly amazing band. You mentioned 2 of my favorite albums, but there is a soft spot in my heart for Heaven Is Whenever.
I love it too, by the way. Yes.
I get lost in the beauty of this album's hopelessness. This record's so fucking sad. It's beautiful. In that respect, it's very much a tribute to artists like Springsteen. It's so very much its own beautiful, sad, dark creature. I adore that record. We Can Get Together, the track with the title line in it, it just cuts so perfectly. I think
so good.
It's some of Finn's best work lyrically, and showcases the band's love for rock and roll and the true heartache of rock and roll. I think it's just a great record and a great band.
Yeah, I love them. And it's funny too, because Craig Finn always mentions the Minnesota roots. Well, he loves the Replacements. He loves the album Let It Be. I Will Dare is one of his favorite songs. But I think maybe that move to Brooklyn, maybe geographically, also kind of strayed them away from maybe that sound. It could be part of it, but a great angle that you bring up, a great point you bring up. I don't hear any Minnesota in there at all. Nothing of it. It's totally unique, totally original. So props to the Hold Steady, obviously. Yeah.
Sorry,
good job. I hope it's encouraging, guys. I hope you still continue to do that music thing.
The last record wasn't that great, so go back to what you were doing. I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go. So here's another band, Mark. We both love Red City Radio. I love the way this band, again, has matured and progressed, just like the Menzingers. I think a lot of it, my opinion, of course, has to do with the fact that in 2014, band member Paul, who also split singing duties with Garrett, left. Once Paul left, it was all Garrett, and he's such a great crooner, man. I mean, the guy is just great voice, great speaking voice in general, great singing voice. To me, he's more personal and heartfelt. It shows with the direction of the band. I really feel like they're a quality rock and roll band with a punk vibe. 2015 self-titled album is great. Tracks like Stranger and Let Me In, just fantastic. But that's another band I think that has blurred the lines, Mark. Red City Radio.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what's really interesting is if you look at those first 2 records compared to the self-titled album from 2015, you really feel like they were trying to be more pop punk. And then 2015 happens. Paul's not in the band anymore. It's just Garrett Dale, and he just does a phenomenal job of really owning his place in the band and taking the band into their next step. Anyways, what I wrote was, oh, dude, yeah, I love Red City Radio. Keep an ear on this podcast. Come early December, Frank and I will be diving deep into their latest album, also titled Paradise.
Oh.
Yeah. Their self-titled album, as was mentioned just a moment ago, that's probably where I fell in love with the band, honestly, especially their 2018 EP, Sky Tigers.
Oh, so good. So good.
It embraced their rock and roll roots, but it took said roots in just their own direction. They just don't care what other people are doing, and they just want to sound themselves. It's personal, blunt lyrics paired with super clean backing vocals, and balanced perfectly with loud guitars and drums that do as much to carry the rhythm as they do to push the band's sound into the stratosphere. I like the early stuff too. Yeah, you nailed it, Frank. Red City Radio is putting out their best work to date now, and you, dear listener, should be listening.
Yes. Couldn't agree with you more. Man, we won't cover too much because we spoke about them a couple episodes ago, but Blacklist Royals, again, we spoke about them, but just real quick, you think they fit that punk style meets rock and roll sound? I mean, I think we do, right?
Yeah, these guys found their way to pair what Social Distortion did and make it more of their own, kind of crashing the Ramones sound with perhaps less of a Hank Williams and more of a Buddy Holly's kind of 50s rock and roll, as opposed to that kind of country or country outlaw style.
Yeah.
Definitely check out Die Young with Me if you haven't. It's
so good.
100% worth the time. It's just a great rock and roll band that has all the heart and grit of a great punk rock band, and it's a shame that they're not making records right now.
Yeah. If you got, I don't know who'd ever listen from that camp, but please make more records. Beach Link. So this is a band that has a lot of buzz over the past few years. I know, and the buzz is such a 90s term, but I'm sorry, that's why I had to use it. They're known for having a more replacement style sound, which is not really what I had in mind when I was thinking of the punk meets rock and roll, but they embrace the rock and roll sound too, and the fact that they have loud, fuzzy punk guitars. Singer James Alex does have a sincerity in his lyrics that bleed out maybe sometimes to that Heartland category. I can't say I was floored by their most recent release, the Deadbeat Bang of Heartbeat City, though I felt it was a little too generic lyrically. However, I did like their 2016 release, A Loud Bash of Teenage Feelings, and the tune Spin the Dial is always one of my faves. Mark, quick thoughts on Beach Slang?
This is another one that I thought was cool. I remember you telling me to listen to A Loud Bash of Teenage Feelings, and I thought it was cool, but never really had the opportunity to just keep diving into them and develop it more. It's something I'm definitely looking forward to do, because I gave the new album a quick listen as I was reading through your notes here, and kind of dug it, but I also wasn't, despite my digging, wasn't digging that deep. So it's one I'm definitely gonna have to be looking back into.
Okay, cool. So here in my other back pocket, we'll put that one in there too.
I'm wearing gym shorts, so there's no back pocket.
I bet they're comfy.
They are. I'm extremely comfy. Comfort at all costs, folks.
Yes.
I'm the problem.
Yeah. And last but not least, oh, that's awesome. And last but not least, the Gaslight Anthem. Well, Mark, I'm sure you knew, if you know me, which I know you do, I was building up this. I mean, we were in a band at the time and I heard them, and the next thing you know, we were in another band that tried to capture that sound. Did they start it? I'm not sure, but they without a doubt revived it, I think, in 2007, 2008. Springsteen was always huge, but the fact that they kind of helped open the Boss to a whole new and younger audience, almost kind of how Tony Bennett was appealing to youngsters many, many years ago. I think Gaslight, maybe if they did open the door, they at least had a hand in doing so. Was punk but rock and roll that touched the heart because they were from Jersey, and so was the Boss, and had those heartland elements. I love all the releases, and you know me, Mark, the 59 Sound to me is their premier showcase of what they could do musically. So, Mark, are they or were they the modern kings of bringing this together? What's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't know about kings. They certainly were the entry point for you and me. A band that we followed their career probably too closely, despite them never really coming to Florida. Through our archives to hear us review Brian Fallon's latest solo effort.
Yeah.
In a story arc similar to the Menzingers, the first LP, Sink or Swim, was really the punkest they got. Interestingly, both albums released in 2007.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. It focused more on raw energy than songwriting. Not a bad thing, but when songwriting came around on the next album, it was certainly more than welcomed, a more than welcome bend to the band, and we were happy that they followed to its end, really. That's kind of where the Menzingers comparison really kind of stops, right? The Gaslight Anthem seemed to struggle with getting past the success of the 59 Sound and their following albums, and the band would only put out 3 more full-length albums after it. The last would be among my personal favorites of their work, Get Hurt. Opens with, it's a chord short of like a grunge song with Stay Vicious. Yet the mood of the album isn't defined by that one song. The band's signature sound kind of slithers out behind the fuzzy guitars with the heartbreak somber tunes that we've come to know and love from the band. In retrospect, the album feels like the band's swan song for me personally, covering themes of emotion from all of the previous albums, while still managing to pull the listener into the fearful, fantasy-laden mind of Brian Fallon as he attempted to navigate this personal life and traumas. That was a good sentence. I wrote that myself.
Yeah, that was great, by the way.
Thank you. We get tracks like Straight Paper, Underneath the Ground, and Red Violins. The album closes with Dark Places and Sweet Morphine, a beautiful pair of tragic ends, and how to cope with them or how not to cope with them, depending on the point of view of the listener. I love this record. I think their best work. I would have loved to have seen them go on from this, but I don't think they were ever able to recover from how successful 59 Sound was and not being able to duplicate it.
Yeah, it's funny with 59 Sound because I'm sure as they were writing it, I would assume at least that they thought that they had something here, and the release was great. And I think it's aged, of course, considerably well over time, and it's continued to get popular. It's influenced bands too, like the band we're going to cover tonight. So, good point. I guess what I'm saying here is I agree with you. It was hard to recover from that. I mean, they had to do a whole switch. They never revisited anything really from that at the end of the day. So, all right, Mark. So you ready to talk about Cold Years?
For sure.
All right. So here we are. Scotland's Old Cold Years and their debut album, Paradise. Being relatively new, listen, there's not much information on them. Of course, you could hear our interview with vocalist Ross Gordon in the archives. So formed in 2014, the band is vocalist and guitar player. Guess what? Ross Gordon, guitarist Finlay, Lewis Craighead on bass, and Fraser Allen on drums. They released their first EP in 2015 titled Mile Marker, their second EP in 2016 called Death Crashers, amazing, and then the third EP called Northern Blues. So here we are, Mark, 2020 with the release of their debut album, Paradise. I know for me, first impressions, hard on your sleeve rock and roll, sound capturing that Jersey Americana style. You could tell these lads just want to get out and where they are from physically and mentally, a la Born to Run. In my research, some of the songs that inspired on Paradise were Warbrain by Alkaline Trio, Where Do You Think You're Going by Dire Straits, fantastic song, by the way. I'm on Fire by The Boss, I Won't Back Down by Tom Petty, Your Wild Years by Menzingers, great song, Bad Luck and Bad Luck by Social T. So pretty good company here for sure when you're kind of thinking of an album. I really like how they're capturing this punk rock and roll songs into these tunes. And first impressions for me is that these tracks have some memorable moments that are going to make me want to re-listen to this again and again and again. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, excellent description, buddy. Really, you really knocked that out there. Hard on the sleeve rock and roll is very fitting for them. I think Ross certainly has the punk rock attitude, even if the band comes across more rock and roll than punk rock per se. That's a good thing for this band. It keeps them sharp, keeps them hungry, and that comes across very well on this record. You ready for me to jump in?
Yeah, man. If there was a pool, I'd go right in.
All right. So track number 1 is called 31. Let's talk about setting the tone of this album. No better place than the first track to do that. We get Ross and an acoustic guitar putting himself out there for a really honest moment here. They could have cut it shorter, but I like what they did with this move by leaving it so long, because it's like a good 45 seconds.
Right, totally.
Not so much in his confidence, but rather his vulnerability. Really just showed all of his cards right up front. Really bold move. Looking back at your life at 31 can be such a disastrous thing, depending on the regrets you've collected along the way in your 20s. It's clear he has his share of regrets to fill an album, and he's going to use this opportunity to let us into that mindset. I also really like the guitar solo here.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Great opening track. Really captures the moment in singer Ross's life. The blood on the streets tonight. To me, that's a classic like rock and punk phrasing, and I really love it. I love the rocking solo, like you said, the build up, the loudness, the mix, the harmonies, the balance of the song of his divorce, and then watching his sister get married. Being polar opposites on the emotion set again is nicely captured here. So I like how they ended it with the acoustic as well. So good opening track. So then we move on to the second track, Life with a View. This is where this Gaslight style song, I think, from Sink or Swim kind of enters, and Ross captures a little Dave Haas with his voice. And I like how the verses are barren and the chorus builds up. To me, this is a classic formula of the style, and throw some questions in there about life and wanting things to be better into this whole musical crockpot, so to speak. So you get again more of that American Americana Jersey Heartland sound. So what about you, Mark?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you there, buddy. I just add that I like their approach to this style. Fortunately, there isn't too much of sounding like this on the album, and they build a solid foundation for the band to really call their own. This is a part of it, but it's not all that they are. There's so much more to this band than this, and this is a great way for them to kind of pay homage to some of the things that are inspiring them at the moment, but also lay the foundation for what they are as a band and who they're going to be. As far as the song goes, it's quite solid. I think this would make a great single. Not necessarily my favorite on the album,
Sure.
but I really dig it.
Cool.
Track number 3 is Night Like This. It's a great showcase of Ross's voice, as well as how steady the rhythm section of this band is. I love the big chorus and the classic classic rock and roll structure of this number. Just really, really great piece.
Yeah, to me, this is like, it's that coming of age love song. This was the first song on the album that really captured my attention and made me want to pursue these guys more. Standing on a corner at a night like this, what a memorable chorus. And I could see us kind of singing along with this, with a bunch of our buddies, and our friends. It's the sound of today's rock and roll for me. The song really personifies that. And I know you have these bands that are like the throwback to that 70s style, like Rival Sons and Greta Van Fleet. But to me, if I needed to tell someone what rock sounds like in 2020, if they want a song, I might give them this song. So Night Like This, I think it's a good song. Northern Blues, another standout track for me. I mean, to me, this is their Born to Run. Here's a quote. This is from Ross, not from our interview, but in research, and in another interview. This is, our hometown's a shithole. Ross spits with characteristically direct candor. This album's called Paradise because Aberdeen is not a paradise. It's horrible. It's gray. It's cold all the time. We live and work here. It's not very happy. It's quite morbid when you stop to think about it. At the same time, it's home. So I really like the streets are on fire and the sky's falling down around us. Coupled with we'll get out of this soon. It's great overall rock sound. To me, it's a really special tune. The use of the F word is welcome because it really invokes emotion to the subject matter. And since it's not every other word, it gets, to me, taken seriously. And the beginning of it, Mark, kind of sounds like when we were in a band called the 33 with a song that we used to play called Empty Starter. So right away, I kind of have a little kinship to this.
Very nice. Yeah, this is one of my favorite songs from the album. Looking back at our discography, when we did Fugazi Spotlight, we talked about Guy Pichetto. Yeah. And how his writing really felt like a stream of consciousness a lot of times. You really get that in this kind of opening, like we're reading directly from Ross's journal, and he's managed to work out the song's chorus in the middle of, the lament about his home. One of the other things I love about this song is how clean it is. Even the slowed down kind of breakdown, quote unquote, where they could have used some distortion to really fuzz things up, and the guitar stayed bright and clean. And you feel the band is enveloped in the struggle to break free of the restraints that is Aberdeen. I think it's a really well done number. And then past that, like with the soundscape, you guys hear me and Frank talk about soundscape all the time. They managed to encompass that kind of like, remember the Simpsons movie where they put the dome over Springfield?
Yes.
They managed to nail what that would sound like.
Nice. I like it.
So with track 5, we have a track called Breath. With all I said about the previous track, Breath is that moment of breaking loose of that and getting really loud, of breaking out of that restraint. I love the way they use profanity so selectively, allowing it to serve more as punctuation. I think that's what you were trying to allude to earlier. I love these kinds of rock tunes, up tempo, but the hi-hat is clinched shut, only opening to help push the rhythm heavier and heavier, and paired with the aggressive bass and guitar. Just really awesome song. A bold choice for a song about catching your breath before your next move. I really dig the structure of the song.
Yeah. I love the loudness of the song. Nice drum beat in the beginning, and in comes the guitars and Ross's really impressive vocals. To me, this almost crosses that hot water music style sound at times. It's big, loud, singable choruses with some late 80s, early 90s rock sounds. Again, the whole "I Got a Reason to Breathe" very, very much sticks with you. So another cool track. Next, we get The Waits. It's originally on the Mile Marker EP, and it's reflecting on Ross's heartbreak and divorce. While that version did not have the piano and had more somber, this one has a more somber tone. I like how the version captures all that emotion. This is also where I draw, here we go, some parallels to the Swing or Swim record, because you have all these rockin' songs, and then around midway you get the slower tune, which Navasink Banks was for Sink or Swim. I love the layout for an album like that, because it gives us really the foundation of what the band is about, and then gives us a little taste of perhaps what could come in future records. So
Yeah, you make a great point about the pacing and the layout of this record. It's just so really well done. They do a great job of making it palatable so that you're really
yeah,
actively listening to each song, because they're not just repeating the same style over and over and over.
yeah, totally.
Track 7 is Burn the House Down.
Yeah,
Yeah, I kind of hate to keep comparing them to other bands, but this reminded me very much of the Menzingers' House on Fire, kind of in theme, but I love how aggressively they play it rather than somber. It almost feels like a reason, or excuse me, it feels like a response to the Menzingers song. If you kind of look at the way the songs are structured, it's an interesting thing. I'm sure they have nothing to do with each other, but just as you're in your brain connecting dots that don't connect, check that one out. Regardless, this feels, like one of the more kind of punk moments on the album.
yes,
In tone, yes, but also in concept, making this dramatic change, and what it will mean. It's a great fucking tune.
yeah, yeah. I like the pissed off 1, 2, 3, 4 in the beginning, and I love, this is, we go back to this on the record. Structurally, it's such a cool sound where you get these in your face octaves and notes, and then the palm muted verses, vocal harmonies, memorable chorus, solo, heartfelt lyrics, and a streetcar named Desire. I have no idea why I was putting that in there. I was just trying to be silly. But anyway, listen, this song has all the awesome ingredients that make up a style that I love, a lot. So then we move on to Electricity. So The Bosses I'm on Fire is where the song began with regards to the inspiration from my research. Again, a great and cool, punchy intro, and I love the use of the chords here. And then we get the verse that steps back for a minute, and then it gets rougher and smooth lyrics. Fire, electricity, the burning desires that are felt, they're showcased here. The words are matched with the intensity of the music. Again, I really just love it, and I'm not trying to say the same things about these tunes, but it's honestly how I feel.
Cool. This to me could easily be a single.
Yeah,
Great use of the studio here to develop the sound of the track. There's a lot of little creaks and moans, from guitars to feedback, that add just a lot of texture to the soundscape of this record.
yeah,
Really smart song. I think you described it pretty perfectly. Just really great, and this was a great one to showcase the time they spent in the studio.
yeah.
Track 9 is Too Far Gone.
Mm-hmm,
There's something about this song that feels like you should be drinking a beer with your buddies while it plays. I just, the feeling I got from it. Ross's ability to convey the darkness of the world around him lyrically is crystal clear, and the band does a great job of supporting the emotions of the song musically. I just think it's a really great tune. Feels like a song you should be drinking with your buddies.
Yeah, yeah. Focusing on the uncertainty of the future, to me, musically, it sounds like a mix again of the Loved Ones and maybe some things we'd hear on Sink or Swim. I really like the melody on the bridge here, especially with the harmonies and how that leads right into the solo. So this band knows how to rock, and this was another just enjoying tune here for me. Hold On, I love the vibe of the song. We get the drum and the cool effect pedal with the guitar riff. That Paradise theme is again highlighted, where one gets in this cycle and circle, and all they want to do is get out of it. However, vices and all that life's obstacles kind of keep you stuck there a little bit. This theme relates to everyone because it stretches to many boundaries, and that's why to me it never gets old for a song topic. So hold on, Mark.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Frank. Very smart move placing this song after So Far Gone. Like we're working through a hangover with the band, and Too Far Gone was maybe the last shot of whiskey, and the sun kind of laser focus on your eyes as you're waking up. While Hold On is kind of perfect, that perfect greasy hamburger settle your stomach, and another cold beer to just kind of take back the headache. I really love the way these two songs play off each other. Of course, we do get that line about champagne and cocaine, so maybe he's partying in a higher tax bracket than I am. But it's honestly probably just a great line that works really beautifully. in setting that distinction of excess.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. Track 11 is called Dropout. This song does a good job of blending these great big choruses together with some really wonderfully thoughtful lyrics. It almost got like a stadium anthem air about it.
Yeah.
Another song I'd love to see get a shot as a signal. It's just such a great example of what the Cold Years is doing absolutely right.
Yeah. To me, like the intro was like a little 80s infused here in a good way. I like the minor chords. I really love how they make me feel inside, and that carries to the verses. And we're at the point in the episode where I highlight a piece of the song, and I say how I would like to do that when writing. So I know I always say that that's what the beginning here. I'd love to do that. So Ross's vocals hit some really nice and precise high notes, heartfelt voices, verses and choruses that leave an impression. And yeah, that's the song. It's that ability to escape and feel good and rock and roll tune that I love. So yeah, it's a really good tune. Dropout. Number 12 is 62, My Generation's Falling Apart. Another tune with that classic traits that the band is establishing so early in their career. Topically, it's about, according to Ross, Brexit, and I'm nowhere near savvy to comment on that topic either ways, but it's another song I dig. Maybe melody wise, I would say probably it's on the bottom tier for me as far as sticking in my head. That doesn't make it bad by any means, just the other tunes are just circulating throughout my thoughts way more often. That's all.
Yeah, this is the one you'll remember in the interview. I
Yes.
thought had a little bit more meaning than Brexit. The mention of the age, the album opener being called,
which was a great tie-in. Like I totally got it, like the way you were saying it.
It feels like they could have been a continuation of the idea of of looking back from 31, and this one looking up at 62. But he does tie in the 62, and I think that's kind of what affects maybe the chorus of the song. Doesn't give it quite the richness because it is so pinned specifically on an idea as opposed to tying it into the rest of the album. But credit to him for keeping it true to what he wants it to be. I gotta give him credit for that. I love the big old classic guitar solo here that we get. There's been some really solid guitar playing throughout the album. This for me is just kind of the best one. I really like, again, not to harp on him and tell him he's wrong, but that guitar solo in the first one, the guitar solo in this one. If Hunter, the last song, isn't on here, the perfect bookends to this record.
Totally.
I really feel so. That said, Hunter's a great fucking song.
It is.
To close out the album, we get kind of a good old-fashioned sentimental number, complete with acoustic guitar intro, where this could have been cliche. I like the way the Cold Years approach the track. The trappings of a closing track are polished over. You get this clear and personal lyrics about any lyrics that anyone can relate to. Excuse me. Where most bands would fill it with cliches. We're treated to a genuine emotional song about a loved one that won't return, and this one just happens to be about his dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm sorry to keep doing this, but I'm going to draw another comparison to Sink or Swim, where we're at the end of the album and we get an acoustic song. This is about Ross's dog and how bad it was that he had to put it to sleep. It's touching, and I like when bands almost do these as tributes to one's life at the end of the album, especially at the end of a powerful album. It's a great bookend, and it's a great way to honor a passing. Nice clarity with the acoustic chords, and that's how I like it to sound. And it's a great way to end an album. So and just back it up for a second. I still think you're onto something with the 31-62, because an album progresses, life progresses. You get to 62, you look back at 31. Like I get where you were going. So
he needed to make a statement about Brexit. He made that pretty clear in the interview that he really wanted to say something about it, and he does. He does a great job of expressing that. I just feel like there was an opportunity to make that song not about Brexit and more about life. And that may have helped it a little bit. But I think at the same time, again, he stayed really true to who he was.
Totally.
By doing that, he made a direct point to point out his politics and how he thought that his band is an appropriate place to use that platform.
Sure.
So,
sure.
I commend him for doing so.
Absolutely. Sure. So, Marc, some final thoughts.
Yeah. I'm happy you asked, because I was about to ask you if I could. Look, I actually kind of really adore this record. I think at first glance, it can be easy to pick out the influences and compare them to the other bands that you've heard us do tonight. But as this record kind of digs its way into your brain through your ear, you get lost. And it stands remarkably well on its own. It's clear that the additional time the band found themselves in the studio turned out to be a good thing, as they were able to take the time and squeeze out the very best of what they had inside of them. Be sure to check out their earlier work.
Yes.
As well to see them develop, because I think Frank makes a really great point with the track. Help me out with the name of the track that was on one of the EPs earlier.
The Weights.
Yes, the Weights. Hearing it develop from there to here, and when Frank said you can really hear what the band's going to sound like, I think he nailed that, because you're hearing directly the band progress and grow and develop into this really, really wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Is this a rock and roll record or a punk rock record? I don't know. It's probably somewhere in between both of them. And while we talk about some great bands that kind of straddle that line, the Cold Years are a promising look at whatever this subgenre is about to be in the years to come. I really feel like these guys have the ability to push this style, this class of its own,
Yeah.
whatever the fuck this subgenre is, and take it to the next level with some really quality songwriting. What do you think, Frank?
Yeah, totally. And we're always going to be bashing the genre theme home, and we love a good, we love mashing things up. So it's all that's going to be a continual talk in our episodes. But yes, Mark, I feel there's tremendous upside with this band, and of course this album. I think you nailed it. It's where somewhere the middle of punk and rock meet. Is it? Where whatever it is, listen, it's loud, it's super enjoyable, it's a fun record, it's serious, it has everything you want. Check out the early work for sure, as you will hear some really, you'll hear more well-written tunes as well. Not more meaning better than Paradise, but in addition to Paradise, you'll hear more well-written tunes.
Additional songs.
Yeah,
in addition to more of their things, you'll hear more of their things.
Yes, exactly. So I'm excited to see where this band goes, and it was great to interview Ross, and now we have this extra perspective on the album, which is awesome. So yeah, excited for their future. Speaking of future, Mark, do you want to tell everybody what we have in store for them in the next episode?
Yeah, next week, Frank and I will be chatting about a band we've been following for really years now, and wanted to find the right way to put bringing them on the program. We are talking about none other than the incomparable. I think incomparable is a good word for that.
I think so.
Avett Brothers.
Yeah.
With the release of the Gleam 3, we thought it'd be an interesting look at all of the Gleams. It'll be a great way as to kind of understand where the brothers came from, where they might go from here, and it should be a good conversation. We'll do it a little bit spotlight style, but really focus on those 3 records.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Avetts, their band we've listened to for a while. Mark, we saw them up in Palm Beach. Down in Palm Beach for you, up in Palm Beach for me. Yes, and it was a great time. Yep, totally.
I hope that's not the last time I saw your wife. No, I've seen her since then. Never mind.
No.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah. But the first 2 Gleams are something we thoroughly enjoyed, and with the recent release of the 3rd Gleam, it made sense for us to look at this more in detail. And like Mark said, it's going to be kind of a spotlight, but also then highlighting the Gleams, and I think it's going to be really good. So we're amped about it. I hope you guys are amped about it. We thank everybody for listening out there. Be sure to check us out on all the avenues to listen to podcasts, including now Apple Music. Let us know, of course, if you have a record that you want us to review. Thanks for listening, everyone, and stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.